So, we're going to be talking about the Garden of Eden today. A joke you'll hear a lot of Christians make is that if they were in the garden instead of Adam and Eve, they would ask Satan to eat the fruit instead. At the end of the day, it simply remains a joke, but it plays on the fact that Satan was being deceitful in the Garden of Eden. Focus on the main point in the Garden of Eden, the fruit. How we got to the fruit, why it was eaten, so on, so on. People often miss the point of the Garden of Eden. People talk about how unfair God is in his nature of wanting worship for his goodness, right? How selfish he is for wanting to be praised. But people waste their time praising other things that mean utterly nothing. Sex, money, drugs, people, sleep, relationships, food, work, etc. It would make much more sense to worship someone who's all good, all knowing, all powerful, all loving, and all caring at the end of the day, compared to things that have no ultimate value at the end of the day. Before Adam and Eve fell, they were living perfectly fine. They had plenty of everything. Like there was nothing else they needed. They even had each other. God even said that man should not be alone, and he gave Adam Eve. Once they fell, all of that was taken and some. Satan tricked them by trying to convince them that they, as the creation, somehow knew better and could do better than the creator. Right? Satan didn't do this because he was trying to liberate humankind, mankind. He did this because this was his only way to get back at God. Satan himself saw fit the best way to get back at God was to separate us from him. And he understood that because he understood how painful and terrible separation from God was. And he understood that we as humans were never meant to die. And part of death originally could have been separation from God. So that's what Satan was aiming to do. He was aiming to separate us from God through us eating the fruit because he understood how bad it was when he was separated from God, when he was kicked out of heaven. The mistake someone could make when, reading this or understanding this or just hearing what I'm saying right now is, oh, Satan didn't want to be around God. Why should I, right? Satan came to Eve asking her a question. He already knew the answer to the question. He knew God had told him not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The question was asked so that Eve would hear it and think God was being unfair to her by limiting her. Because Satan was trying to convince Eve that God limiting her was him being unfair, even though he had given her everything else she needed, including a husband. It's the same way atheists fall into thinking that God enforcing rules is unfair. God enforced a rule in the Garden of Eden, and Satan was doing his best to convince Eve that he was being unfair, not only being unfair, stopping her from a greater purpose. Atheists and a lot of us are the same way. We want to say that, you know, rules are unfair, even if they're there to protect us, even if they're strictly there to protect us and the good of others as well. Satan then goes on to tell Eve, God knows that once you eat of the tree, you will be like him, knowing good and evil. You will be your own gods. Calls her a goddess. And the reason he says this isn't because he's trying to make her feel special inside. He's trying to help her understand that God is God because he says what is good and evil. So he's trying to convince them to eat the fruits so that they themselves can determine what is good and evil for themselves. Even though God's already done that for him. He's done all the hard work for them and given them more than they needed. This is essentially him doubling down. He's saying not only is God limiting you, you don't need God. You can do it yourself. I can tell you now, we don't do a good job of it. So to reiterate, Satan tells Eve that he's limiting her and being unfair to her by keeping her from eating the fruit. And then also he doubles down and says this, matter of fact, if you eat it, you can do a better job of that. You can do a better job of that. So he's limiting you, and you can do a better job than what he's doing. Even though he is God, you can do a better job than God. Right? Satan literally said to her, you see how God's trying to limit you? This finally brings Eve to eating the fruit. She wants to be her own God by doing this. In her own, what she's saying, she didn't say this verbally, but that's the statement she made when eating that fruit. I've seen God do his work. Let me take a crack at it. I think I can try it. Let me see what happens. right? That's not what she said with her mouth, but that's what she said with her actions when she ate that fruit, instead of listening to what God and Adam told her. That's what we ourselves do every day. We chase fruit over God, knowing God knows better, all because we want to do what we want to do. We want to get help the way we want to get help. We want to make this the way we want to make it. We want to do this the way we want to do it. We want to say this the way we want to say it. What we always do is based on what we want to do. God asks us to try to fight that urge and listen to what he says, because ultimately it's better. And it's not because he just wants to make rules and loves hearing his voice. It's because it's for the better of us. It's the same way your parent doesn't tell you to not walk on the street because they want to hear their voice. It's because they don't want to see you get flattened by a freaking car. And I say flattened, but in reality, if you got hit by a car, you probably could burst or you could get broken in half. So yeah, anyway, the point in the garden was simple. God gave man everything they needed. Not everything they wanted, everything they needed. Satan came and told man God was cheating them out and he was being unfair to them. Man had to make a choice there. Their choice was either to listen to God or listen to Satan, who again was a random snake slash serpent slithering around the ground, crawling on his legs. Man, with the knowledge in their head, with their current mind space, decided, yeah, I just want to listen to what Satan has to say, because, he kind of sounds a little interesting. I don't know. I'm kind of picking up what he's putting down, right? And that got us to where we are now. People often want to say that society is getting better. It's getting worse. If you pay attention to human like health, there are more diseases now than there have ever been before, and it's going to keep getting that way. Generally, pay attention. We are not getting better, we're getting worse. But I digress. The point of the garden was simple. God gave man everything they needed. Satan came and said that we were being cheated, and we listened to Satan instead of listening to the person who loves us and cares for us. That was the purpose of the garden. It wasn't to say that we lost our salvation because of some fruit. It was to say that we chose anything but salvation because of fruit. We chose it. We chose things other than salvation because we were self-seeking and we wanted instant gratification. And that was where we were at fault. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful to someone. I think it is. But yeah. So then guys, praying for you guys. Keep clashing and God bless.